All right, well, so now that you have an understanding of how the Bitcoin blockchain works, now let's take a look at some alternative architectures, just so that you understand there's a lot of variation out there. And the purpose of this module isn't necessarily to show you all the variations, it's just to give you an appreciation for the different variations that do exist. So the first alternative architecture we're going to look at is actually something that's used for the Internet of Things, right? It's called IOTA. And the architecture that it uses is something called Tangle. Now, Tangle is just like a blockchain, with the exception of the fact that there's no blocks, there's no miners, there's no fees, it's faster, transactions are in depth, it's scalable, and it's quantum proof. And the basic idea behind a Tangle is it's used for generally very high volume transactions that are not necessarily like big dollar transactions, right? These are devices talking to each other. It's your refrigerator talking to your kitchen appliances or something like that. They're generally component type things. So it's a high volume, low risk, just a lot of data fast. And the basic idea is that your transaction is validated when you're validating 2 or 3 other transactions, right? The next one that we're going to look at is the Lightning Network. So the Lightning Network is an architecture that really is designed to extend the capability of the Bitcoin blockchain. So one of the challenges with the Bitcoin blockchain is its limitations in terms of how many transactions per second it can do, the block size. There's different performance capabilities limitations, right? When you look at how many transactions Visa or MasterCard does compared to Bitcoin, I mean, it's not even comparable. Bitcoin just does not have the capability to do that. So one of the ways that Bitcoin blockchain is being extended is through something called Lightning. This is what they've used in El Salvador to extend the Bitcoin blockchain. And so basically the way it works is your Bitcoins essentially can come off of they technically don't get off of the Bitcoin blockchain. They essentially get locked up into essentially a smart contract. And it moves onto the Lightning Network. So the Lightning Network, it allows for you to establish channels between trusted parties. So I might have a channel that I set up with my barber, and my barber might have a channel set up with a local coffee shop, and the coffee shop might have a channel set up with the local auto repair store or shop, right? So if I go into that auto repair shop, I can actually transact with that auto repair shop because I've got a channel set up with my barber to the coffee shop to the auto repair shop. And it doesn't do anything like consensus. The transactions are self-synchronizing, meaning as long as the 2 parties agree to it, then the transactions are performed, because each of these channels are with trusted parties. And then at a certain point in time, then my Bitcoin wallet essentially syncs back up with the Bitcoin network, so that I can use the safety security of the Bitcoin network as a store of value, but I can actually process transactions on a lighter weight architecture. Another architecture that's fairly popular is something called Hashgraph. Now, this is a proprietary protocol. It's owned by a company called Swirls, and it uses something called the Gossip Protocol. And in this case, again, there's no miners. It uses a concept, very, very fascinating, called virtual voting. Now, think about this. You probably know people or have people in your family that it doesn't matter who's running, you know what party they're going to vote for, right? Their voting patterns are not up for debate or discussion, right? And so this is a little bit of how this works from a voting standpoint. There are certain rules in terms of how these different, they don't call it blocks, they call it events, are going to vote. And when those conditions are met, they don't have to actually wait for that event to vote. They know how that event's going to vote, so they act based on the virtual voting as opposed to the actual voting. And so this protocol is very, very fast. It's very popular, and it's just an alternative architecture. Okay, and sort of the technology, the technique that Hashgraph uses is something called directed-acyclic graph, or DAG. And it basically allows for just very, very fast transactions that are not in linear form, right? So those are just a couple of the different architectures.